Hello Internet, I am Tesaks and welcome to the second part of Developer Diary. Today we are going to look at scripting, basic UI extension, a little bit of drawing and bug fixing. So first of all, what's going on the screen right now? Well, we are adding, or not really adding, but extending the UI with more text and later on with some buttons and also some icons. Uh, Everything that is added right now is because we want the player to know that there are buildings now. And the buildings are housing, workshop and campfire. To understand it better, I imagine that in the future the housing will allow the player to get some objectives, the workshop will allow the player to craft some tools, and the campfire allows the player, as is right now, to get some minor bonuses. So the housing allows the player not only to uh, increase the level of housing, but increase the level of living room, bedroom, and kitchen, which will get their respective meaning in future updates. The same applies to workshop, which allows the player to build furnace, workbench, and storage, which will get their meaning in future update as well. So, what's the difference between uh, workshop, housing, and campfire? I already mentioned what each of these buildings should be doing, but there is more to that, especially to the campfire, because campfire is the only building that don't require going through building phase. I will get to the building phase topic later. So it's the only building that don't require going through building phase. Also, that's the only building that has level cap of 1 and is the only building that allow the player to interact with it right now. So the interaction is that once the player build the campfire, he can lit it on fire, and once the campfire is lit on fire, the player character gets 5% yield bonus. The campfire, lighting the campfire on fire requires some wood, and once it's done, till the application is closed, the campfire is on fire. Once the application is restarted on opening again, the campfire is already turned off, and the player needs to turn it on again by letting it on fire again. I decided to implement it this way because I don't feel there is need to warn player with some kind of pop-up or something like that that his campfire is running low on fire and he should add some fuel to this, because the game will be played from the pocket, so yeah, no need for that. Also, with that said, let's focus on the building phase, because that's game changer right now. Since now we only had one gaming loop or gameplay loop, and it was resource gathering. How resource gathering works, I'm not really sure if I explained it in the first video, so I will quickly recapitulate or explain it again. The resource gathering works the way that whenever the player walks 25 steps, he's rewarded with 1 yield, and the 1 yield is randomly selected and calculated toward the goal of one of the resources. Once the resource have 10 yields assigned to it, then the yields are decreased by 10 and resource is increased by 1. So the building phase is really similar in the sense that it requires player to walk 25 steps before getting 1 yield, but the yield have changed to be duplicated, and then the yield is assigned to the building phase goal, which is a goal that's generated by the level of the building selected to be built. So that's the building phase, and when the building phase reach its goal, then the goal or the yields are reset and the level of the building is increased by 1. Right now there are no required resources in order to start the building phase, because I want to test it and I fear that I might have not enough resources, so I didn't implement it yet. The campfire is right now, because it skips the building phase completely, the only building that requires resources to be built. So I feel I covered everything I wanted in this sense. So let's focus on the UI again. So there are icons now. There is icon for lit campfire. There is icon for the building that's under construction, and I added a bar that allows the player to select the work or the character's action. The bar is located in lower part of the screen, and it allows the player to choose from three types of activities, which is exploration in the middle, which is basically just fancy name for resource gathering. On the left side is building, and on the right side is crafting. The crafting isn't implemented yet. And also it would be nice to note that when the building phase is completed, the activities is automatically selected or changed back to exploration, so the player don't miss on resources and is not required to change the activity by himself. So I feel that right now I covered everything, scripting and UI related. Also, I don't really feel that there is that much of talking about drawing, so let's focus on something I wanted to say last time, but I had no space for it. So that's ways of getting input, because there are three types of ways, at least to my knowledge, of getting input, and these are from the player working, and these are accelerometer, pedometer API, and please don't quote me on that because I don't really know if I pronounce it correctly. So yeah, and GPS. And each of these have their advantages and disadvantages, and I will run it down for you, at least how I see it, and I will explain why I choose what I choose and what's going to be implemented in the future. So first of all, accelerometer. This is something that we already implemented in the first part, and essentially the huge advantage of accelerometer is that it allows us to completely control the way the steps are counted. The huge disadvantage is that the app needs to be running on focus in order to collect the, or not collect, but increase the number of steps. The pedometer API, on the other hand, have a huge advantage of being independent on the app. So we can just ask the pedometer API on the number of steps that the player walked recently, and we are going to get the number, and we can work with that. So that's a huge advantage because it allows us to save a load of battery lifetime. But on the other hand, we can't really do anything with that, and we can't really tweak it. So that's the disadvantage. And then there is the GPS, which is mainly only disadvantages, and the only advantage it have is that it would allow the player to carry his phone in his backpack or something like this and still count the steps, because how the accelerometer and pedometer works is that they rely on the phone changing directions. So when you are walking and have the phone in your pocket, the accelerometer and the pedometer, they work on the same concept. Swing the phone forward and backward and left and right, and they see it as movement and edit as steps. The GPS, on the other hand, uh, the only advantage is that the player would be able to play it from backpack or something like that. On the other hand, there are too many disadvantages, because first of all, the GPS needs to be run on focus, same as accelerometer, but at the same time you need the GPS to be turned on, and also it would require us to calculate more things, so further decreasing the battery lifetime. Another disadvantage is that it would collect too much data. We don't really need the position of the player. We really need just the number of steps. So it would increase the work in the matter of legality and other works that would be done with the licensing, etc. So the plan is that right now we implement accelerometer. In the future we will implement pedometer. Also, one disadvantage of or one disadvantage of pedometer is that it's not present in every single phone. At least to my knowledge, it's presented in most phones that have Android 4.4 or higher, and I don't really know if the pedometer API is present in any cell phones made by Apple. So I will have to look into that. Also, the plan is that accelerometer is implemented. It can be run on all devices with accelerometer, and the pedometer will be implemented later on, and the player will be able to choose his preferred method of getting the input. Also, the app will choose for the player when the app is first launched, which will depend on the fact if the pedometer is present or not, and the player will be still able to change the setting later to more fit his needs. So, with that said, I think I covered everything I wanted, and I also promised you some bug fixing. So, on the screen there is some bug fixing right now, if I don't mistaken, and it's just looking through the code, so not really anything interesting, but I can talk a bit about it because I do remember fixing or finding 3 bugs, or maybe 4, I don't really know right now, so let's find out. First one was that I don't really properly implemented the way of getting the activity back from building phase, so I had to fix that, and I fixed that. The second thing that was considered bug was me poorly, or not really poorly, but I forget that I changed the yield bonus and I increased it further in order to test it, and I forgot to change it back, so it would be considered as bug. Then there were another bug that involved the activity change slider, which got stuck on changing, so you only could change the activity once. It's already fixed. And the last bug that I think is still present because I don't remember fixing it is that whenever the building phase is completed, it do everything that you wanted to do, but it locks the UI. So I will have to look into this and change it or fix it, and I feel like I will change it or fix it whenever I will get to the UI again, or when I will change the building phase, because the building phase will probably need some polishing as well. So in the future we are going to fix this bug. Also we are going to change more things, including the pedometer API that we will need to add. And hopefully in the next part we are going to focus more on graphics, because right now I feel like the game is just not really interesting on the graphic side. So we will probably add some kind of background and some kind of representation of the world that the player's character will be living in, etc. So I think I covered everything I wanted, and with that said, I will see you guys in the next episode that will come out hopefully sooner than later. See ya!